Thank you. I want to ask the Minister if he has plans for a funding vehicle for credit unions to invest in social housing provision through, for instance, approved housing bodies, in the context of the Central Bank having now indicated that they will allow credit unions to invest in such social housing, provided your department creates a suitable funding vehicle.
Minister, I understand you're taking question 24 with it.
Yeah, question 7 and 24. Following engagement with the credit union sector on proposals for credit unions to provide funding for the provision of social housing, the Central Bank undertook a review of the relevant investment framework in 2017. On foot of this review, the revised regulations commenced on the 1st of March 2018. The revised regulations included the addition of investment in regulated investment vehicles, where the underlying investments of the regulated investment vehicle are investments in Tier 3 approved housing bodies, as a permitted investment class for credit unions. As such, since March 1st, 2018, credit unions are permitted to provide funding through a regulated investment vehicle to Tier 3 AHBs for the provision of social housing. In respect of the development of specific purpose vehicles by the credit unions to enable them to make investments in the sector, it is a matter for the credit unions themselves to make the necessary arrangements to facilitate this. We had this discussion earlier on, Deputy Burton, and it is something we want to see happen. We want to encourage it. There is a process in place here to make it happen now. So yes, that we are trying to make that happen as well. My department did inform the credit union representative bodies that it was funding a project being undertaken by the Irish Council for Social Housing to examine the establishment of the SPVs to facilitate investment in the sector. The department put the bodies in contact with the ICSH with a view to those bodies examining further how they could invest in the sector, because the two different credit union bodies want to make sure that both get equal and fair treatment, and they've been asked to engage with the Irish Council for Social Housing around this special purpose vehicle. I did outline to the House earlier that there was 3 phases to that work, and 2 phases are complete, and the last part of that should be complete hopefully in the month of October, but certainly in the weeks ahead as well, and that should be able to facilitate more investment. And again, to be clear, one approved housing body have set up a special purpose vehicle and can take money, and we also have one of the credit union bodies also are ready to take investment as well, to make investments as well.
Can I get Deputy Burton?
Can you say, Minister, have credit unions actually now, in your reply there, are you saying that they're now able to invest in the provision of social housing through approved housing bodies? Could you tell me how many credit unions are now able to do that? And I'm sure your department monitors it, because it's a really good social development. It would also make very good provision for cooperative type housing developments like the O'Coulon development to be funded through the credit union model. But could you tell me how many credit unions have actually succeeded in doing this so far?
We'll take that question first, and then we'll take
I would agree with Deputy Burton that it is a really good development, and I have to admit and agree that the whole House here wanted this development to happen. It's something that everyone put forward here as well. We tried to make sure it would happen. My understanding is no credit union have invested money yet. They are yes. That's the question you've asked me, and give me the answer. Since March the 1st, they are allowed to do that. They've spent the year working on the process to do it. One of the movements, one of the credit union bodies, the CUDA, are ready and able and are available to invest money through approved housing bodies if they want it, and they've been engaged with that sector. That process is there. That's as far as we can bring it, to be honest with you. And then the overall sector is working with the ICSH to develop another special purpose vehicle, because there probably will be a range of vehicles to facilitate different types of investment here. That work should complete in October. So we're not in a position or allowed to design that SPP for them. But we're trying to encourage the process to make it happen, all right, because we would like this to happen. And it will come down to then individual approved housing bodies deciding who they want to take their money from. And that's where it's at.
Deputy O'Brien, who's your supplementary?
Same matter. And look, Minister, I completely understand that it's not the department's responsibility to create the SPVs, whether for the approved housing bodies to borrow or the credit unions to lend. But what we're hearing from both of those sectors is they don't feel they're getting enough assistance, both from the Department of Finance and their expertise in this area, and possibly not from your own department in terms of helping them set up whether it's one vehicle or 2 separate vehicles, one to lend, one to borrow. So all I'd urge you to do is to use your good offices, along with the Department of Finance, to bring the various players together to try and assist them in doing what we all agree would be the setting up of the vehicle or vehicles to get the lending flowing.
Mr.
Again, I think that's probably a little bit unfair criticism from the sector, because we've engaged with them as much as we possibly can. We cannot design it for them. I mean, they are private entities. I want to be very clear on this. Our job is for housing. We're not in the business of setting up special purpose vehicles. We've been trying to engage with the process, and certainly through our offices, we both as ministers met them and our officials on many occasions to try to engage with them, to encourage them, put them together. And again, to be clear, one of the credit union movements are ready. They're through all this process and they have money available. So please, we want to be very clear on this. I can't be any clearer than that, okay? And the other credit union movement are engaged with a process which should complete in October and enable them as well. And my understanding is one approved housing body have their own special purpose vehicle. So I think people need to understand what's going on here. We brought this as far as we can possibly bring it. I would be unhappy that it took so long from the central bank point of view, but we're not in charge of that section, to be honest with you. But we can't do any more for them at this stage, from my understanding.
Supplementary, Deputy Burton.
Has the Cabinet Subcommittee on this issue met? Have you brought together the Department of Finance and the Department of Housing and the credit unions? Because, to be honest, the credit unions are being treated like pass the parcel. They're going to the central bank, who've given the OK after a lot of consideration. They're going to finance, but finance are saying to go to yourselves. Now, all those offices are all held by Fine Gael ministers. Can you guys not sit down over a cafe latte or something like that and actually agree to iron it out? I mean, this is an area where you could actually untangle the bureaucracy you're buried in, and that our people who need housing could actually get, in particular, the cooperative model. And it's really sad. There's 13 to 14 billion at the moment in credit unions, a proportion of which could be very safely invested in providing much needed homes for people. The credit unions, the community movement, they want to do it. Can your government, can Fine Gael not facilitate this?
Deputy, sorry, 1 second. Deputy Broin, you're entitled to your second supplementary if you have one. No, that's helpful. Minister.
I think my colleague on the right, I think, prefers a mocha frappuccino. They're not very common in my area, but I prefer the mocha with straightforward myself. Just to be very clear, I think we have sat down, and again, I'm going to point out to you that when we took up the brief of housing as Fine Gael ministers, again, one of the first issues we set about doing was to make sure this available money that credit unions have, and they wouldn't have 13 or 14 billion available to invest in housing, but they certainly have an amount of money, and there's arrangements put in place, was to make it happen. So our departments did come together, facilitated a lot of meetings, a lot of processes. We don't control the central bank. The central bank is not run by a Fine Gael minister, but they also completed their work. And now the process is complete in terms of what the work we can do as a Department of Finance, or Housing, or Central Bank, and it was over to the entities to develop the special purpose vehicles, to work with the approved housing bodies to do that. Some have been successful and are through their process and are available to spend money today. I'm trying to be very clear on that. That part is complete. Now, the approved housing bodies have to decide who they borrow their money off and how much they pay for that money. And that's their decision. We can't make them do that. We have encouraged them to bring forward numerous projects, a pipeline of projects. We're working with them across many sites, and there are at this moment in time, I think, over 1,000 sites and developments and projects coming forward, a large chunk in our approved housing body. So there are options there for this investment to happen. But the Fine Gael ministers have sat down and have done their work on this, and it is complete.